recording. Let me just go on to Facebook and then we can get ourselves live on Facebook quickly. And then all good to go. Just a few things I must do to get that ready. Okay, share on the page. Maledu, M-A-L-E-D-U.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm going live. I'm getting quite good at this.
Well done. Well done to you.
Okay, there we go. Good afternoon. It's almost 12 o'clock, and as for the past couple of weeks at 12 o'clock, I interview one of the chapter contributors of the book Forgotten Woman, the South African Story, and today is no different. Today I have another sensational woman that I'm going to be interviewing. She's vibrant, she's energetic, she is someone to watch, and she's going places. So Forgotten Woman, the South African Story, it's a book, it's a collective effort by 15 remarkable women who have each shared their stories, and what incredible stories these are. Oh my goodness. If anything, get your book. It is available online. It is an incredible collection that was inspired by COVID-19, by the lockdown, by the mere fact that so many women have been so adversely affected by the lockdown, because, you know, little did we know how it was going to affect us. Some people have lost their businesses, their livelihood. In many cases, both spouses have lost their jobs, and this is now a pandemic in its own right, because, you know, all the focus has been on making sure that we all stay out of touch and that we are not faced with any possible risk. But the risks that were, I don't think, anticipated was the risk of your livelihood. And I think this is now becoming more and more of a pandemic than what we realize, of how many people are actually suffering the consequences of borders closing and of you know, jobs being lost. And I think there's never been a time more relevant to tell the stories is at a time like this, because post-COVID, my word, the stories that will be told then. But all the sales of the book, the funds go to the Women of Stature Foundation, and specifically to the Forgotten Woman of COVID-19 project. And this, we hope, will bring some relief to some women anywhere in South Africa that have been affected. And we sincerely hope that you will support this initiative. You will buy a copy of the book. As I say, it's available on Amazon Kindle. We're running a really, really great price special at the moment. And later on in the year, we will be printing the book, and it will be available, hopefully, through distribution, that it can be in your hands. We're very proud of the product. It's an absolutely amazing collection of stories. So without further ado, I have with me today the absolutely sensational Tshepiso Maledu. Now, Tshepiso, you and I were online earlier today, and you told me about an unfortunate situation that you encountered this past week. But, you know, we just have to rise up above anything that is trying to distract us. And I think, Tshepiso, this is exactly, you know, it's like it's the devil at work, and how he's trying to distract us from telling the stories, from spreading the good news, and you know, just generally trying to, you know, stay positive and stay out of this possible grip of fear that is so easy to be gripped by. So Tshepiso, I want to know, and I'm sure the ladies that are tuning in with us today and all our followers on Facebook, that I like to know, who is this incredible woman, the woman behind the name Tshepiso. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, and what has brought you to where you are today.
Sure. Thank you so much, first of all, Charlotte, for this opportunity, and to all the great, amazing women who've contributed to this work. It is such an honor and a privilege to be given this opportunity, and to actually collaborate on this work. So first of all, thank you so much for your courage, for your boldness, and taking the step to actually, you know, create this opportunity for us as women. So a bit about Tshepiso. Maledu, I was born and brought up in Soweto, in a township called White City, Jabavu. So I am from the dusty streets of Soweto. I am the product of a township, as I said, called White City, Jabavu. I was born to Mr. and Mrs. Maledu, Joseph Maledu, and Alina Maledu, and I am the 5th daughter, so I'm the last born daughter of the 5 girls. So yeah, that's where I was brought up, and yeah, I think a bit about me, you know, growing up in the township and being just surrounded by phenomenal women around me, and you will see, I mean, a lot that I say about the story, I'm celebrating all the women and the matriarchies. You know, we talk about patriarchy, but I think for me, it's celebrating the matriarchies that have contributed to who I am, you know, and just the upbringing there in the township and in Soweto. So yeah, that's just a bit about my upbringing. I went to a township school, right? Some people look at me, normally when I talk to young people, you know, they're like, no, maybe you went to a good school, whatever. I went to a township school, Tshepiso Secondary School, where there were horses outside, there were windows broken, and I think I'm just a living testimony of that. You don't choose where you come from, but you choose how to respond. You choose how you want to make the best out of your situation. So I went to a township school, even until my high school, as well. But I was a young person with a dream. You know, I think I was just propelled by a dream inside of me. I've always been that child who asked the why. I've always been in pursuit of, why am I alive? Why am I where I am? Why am I surrounded by, you know, what I'm surrounded? What is poverty? Why are we poor? Why all these things? I think I've always been in pursuit of a why. And my introduction, I think what has been key to my life is my faith, and having to, you know, receive Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior of my life. That kind of made me to continue to want to pursue the why. There is a greater purpose. There is a greater God out there. There's something bigger and greater. And so my life has always been in pursuit of answering the why. I always say that my purpose is to find my purpose and help others to do the same. So that has just been my journey of faith, of courage, of answering the why, and helping others to do the same, and being pursued of understanding people's behavior as well. That has also been critical in my journey, and that's why I studied dramatic arts. So my first degree is in dramatic arts, and it's always been my, I think my desire to understand why people behave the way they behave. And theater gives you, as an actress, theater gives you that opportunity to be able to take different roles. And yeah, so that's been my journey of life, and helping people to discover their purpose, and it be with continuing with studying coaching. As somebody, I have a master's in coaching, and it's been in the journey of helping people and leaders in particular to understand themselves, to understand their behavior, and to be better, to always, for all of us to be better versions of ourselves. So that's a bit about me. I can go on and on. I hope I've given you a glimpse of who Tshepiso Maledu is. Yeah.
Well, certainly, I think the fact that you say that in the arts, in acting, you certainly do play an incredible role in just what I'm seeing now. I mean, you just totally embracing what it is that life offers you. And did you say that you were the youngest of 5?
Yes, I was the youngest of 5. Yeah.
Wow.
Of the 5 girls.
5 girls. So your father was surrounded by women.
100%.
Well, I don't suppose he really had the last say in the house, did he?
Well, to be honest, he did have the last say. He really did have the last say. Yeah, and I guess that's it. Hey, that my father and continues to have the last say. My father is still alive. My mom has passed on, and yeah, he's still a true man who has a last say over our lives. Even he contributes a lot to our lives. He's always been that voice. I've always said that my father was that guy, that father in my life when I got position 2 or 3 at school. Back then when we used to use positions, it's like, okay, well done, but what happened to you getting position 1? You know what I'm saying? So it's that idea of acknowledge but don't settle. Always strive for more. You can be better and you can do better. And yeah, that's the voice that he is in my life even today.
And what you're saying is so true, that the father figure plays such an important role in a child's formation. And I was very fortunate as well that I had a father that was always the one person that I knew I could go to and I could rely on, and he was always that symbol of hope, because he was such a positive man as well, always positive. So over the many years, I mean, you're still very young. If I say the many years, you still have many years to go. But over the years that you have obviously been striving towards what it is that you have achieved thus far, but I know there's still a lot waiting ahead, because I don't see you giving up and finishing up very soon. Who would you say was your role models, besides your parents, obviously? But who else would you say were you looking up to and striving to be as a person that you felt was a good role model to you?
Sure. There's been lots of women, I think, who have contributed and have been role models to me. So if I start in my community, and I'm gonna start there because I think that's where a lot of forming happens, and that's why I say in my chapter I'm celebrating all these women who've contributed to my life, to my mom's story, because my chapter is about the voice of my mom and celebrating her life, because I think that we have not put premium to mothers who've decided to be stay-at-home moms, and so as they can raise their children, and I think for me those are the women that I want to celebrate. Yes, I will celebrate others as I walk, as I continue in my life. But I think they've played a very fundamental a role, right? Starting with my mother, I celebrate her, and for me, she exhibited all the qualities and the characteristics of a strong woman, who lived a life of sacrifice. And so I firstly want to acknowledge her and celebrate her. Celebrate my sisters, my 4 sisters that come ahead of me: Lillian, Maledu, Rose, Queensley, and CD. Those are my sisters. They were my role models. They were the ones that also supported my mother, supported us, supported me as the youngest daughter. I role models like Mama John Bulaheni, Mama Sylvia John Bulaheni. I mean, they were close family friends. They exposed me to the vendor culture. Growing up, we used to go to Limpopo. If you see in my summary of my chapter, I talk about celebrating women in Limpopo, in the rural areas, because growing up, I used to go to Venda with their family, and just seeing all these strong, powerful women waking up before the sun goes up to fetch water. And I'd be like, wow, that for me was just amazing. It was just phenomenal. And today, those women are still there in the rural areas of Venda, of Toyando. But these are the women that I want to celebrate, that I saw strength from them, that I saw courage, that I saw hard work from them. That was hard work, just waking up in the morning, fetching the water, making sure that the food was ready. That for me is phenomenal, right? And so that's why I'm saying I'm celebrating the women who used to sell makip-kips at the corners of our schools. At schools, after school, would go and buy makip-kips and food and quarters. I'm talking township lingo now, Charlotte, right? But these are phenomenal women who are business women that they never called themselves business women or entrepreneurs, but they were running business. And those are the women for me that I'd like to celebrate and say, we honor them. We honor the fact that they managed to turn a tin of fish into a meal that fed 5 children or 10 children, whatever it is, from a 1-room house. There was so much love. There was so much warmth. That is what I want to celebrate. These, for me, are the women who are role models that I think we have forgotten. And my story today wants to celebrate those women. So if I get out of the context of my township and my upbringing of the women who've contributed to my life, I think one of the role models for me was Basitsana Khumalo, who was Miss South Africa 1994. For the first time, I looked at her and I said, my dream is valid. I looked at her and I said, it is possible. She comes from Soweto. She comes from the township. It is possible. And I'd like to celebrate her as well, because she was the first role model that actually amplified beauty and made it possible for us to look at her and say, as a Black child, my dream is valid. One, my beauty can be appreciated, and I can look up to her and say I can be her as well. So yeah, that's a bit of the women. I mean, there's lots of women, but yeah, I mean, I look at it now as I grow. There's lots of women who've contributed to who I am. I celebrate Mama Isabella, who gave me this opportunity. I celebrate you, Charlotte. These are women that I've met along my path and along my way that have become mentors, right? That have become role models. Today, I am what I am because of them. I am standing on the shoulders of giants. And I want to celebrate all the giants that have gone ahead of us.
Well, you certainly are excited to be able to share that these are the women that, as you say, you've stood on the shoulders of giants. One of the ladies online with us says, yes, stay-at-home moms are most of the time forgotten. Hence, they play a role in society. Big up, Tshepiso. So you quite rightly say, that we need to celebrate all the women and all the people that have helped us and molded us into who we are today. And I think it's only right in Women's Month that we do that, because very, very often women that don't necessarily have their names up in lights are not considered, but you are paying tribute to these women. So well done on doing that. So you are running your own business.
Yeah.
And how long have you been running your business? And what are the challenges that you've had as a woman running her own business? And what advice would you like to give any woman who is considering running her own business? Because I think there is a lot to be said for someone who steps out of a secure paying job and starts her own business.
Sure. So I've been out of corporate for 7 years now. It's my 8th year out. I left corporate as a senior leadership development specialist in 2012, and I began my business in 2013. And let me start by saying that when I transitioned from corporate to running my own business, the first motivation really for me was to be present for my son, who is now 13 years old. And I remember the reality of one day chasing a career, and there's nothing wrong with chasing a career. We all have those moments in our lives. And I remember I was flying and I was flying to Cape Town on a business trip as usual in corporate. I had asked a friend to pick up my son from school because obviously I didn't have support at that time. And unfortunately, a friend had pressure from work where she called me just as I was in a plane, right? And I was not even boarding, the plane was about to take off. She called me and said, my friend, unfortunately, my boss has asked me to work. I can't pick up your son as promised. And that was a reality check to me, that something has got to change, something has got to give. I remember that was the longest flight of my life to fly to Cape Town, because I realized that I wasn't there for my son, and that was one of the motivations that made me to leave corporate, to say, I gotta do something that's going to enable me to be a present mother. Right. So that decision of leaving corporate was one motivated by that I wanted to be there for my son, right? And what I was, but also to find financial freedom, but also to acknowledge that I wanted to trade significance over security, because I also had a vision of, going to schools and empowering young people, and so I couldn't do that in the full-time job, right? So it was a decision that I was making, calculated, to say, I am aware that I am trading significance. Security of a job, of finances will no longer be there, but this is the risk I am willing to take. And I remember, and I want to celebrate Renita September as well, who was my boss then, who also acknowledged the gift that was in me, that my dream, I had put up a theater production called Die Empty while I was still in corporate the year before. She came to watch the production. It was at the Joburg Theater. And after the show, she came back to me. She's like, Tshepiso, there is more in you. I don't think that you staying in this corporate environment, you are allowing yourself to, to fulfill your potential. And she said, go think about it. That December of 2012, she said, go think about it. I was due for a promotion. And she was like, think about it, whether you want to take the risk and do all the things that you want to do, that you love to do, that you're passionate about, or stay in this corporate environment. That was the hardest December of my life. But when I came back in January and I said, I want to take the risk, I want to take this leap of faith and go and step out of the unknown and fulfill my passion, my potential. That was a turning point. And through that, she gave me an opportunity to start as a consultant. So I think sometimes we are afraid to take that step of the unknown and thinking that the world will not cushion us. But I believe that when you take the step of the unknown, God will put people in your path that will make that dream to come come true. And so that's how I transitioned. I transitioned into a consultant role as a leadership development specialist, and that grew to me actually establishing Ahang Human Potential as a leadership and coaching theater practice. So that has been it. And I think it's being sober about it, in acknowledging that you are trading something. You know, you're going to leave the comfort of security, you're going to leave the comfort of money, but I believe that purpose is bigger than the security of money. Purpose is bigger than, just getting a paycheck, but understanding that there's so much that we can do with our lives. And so that's the risk I took when I actually left corporate into running my own business.
What I'm hearing you saying is that you had someone that recognized it, that was working with you, and she gave you, it's almost like she gave you that additional push, but yet there was a bit of a comfort blanket to say you can work as a consultant whilst you starting your own business. Do I understand that correctly?
100%.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying, that I want us to also celebrate women who have influence in corporate, who are actually paving the way, you know, for others as well. But also to encourage people to share their dreams, share, you know, their passions, because opportunity will come when we actually share our dreams, and there will be people along the way who will support us in that journey.
Yes, because, you know, even I experienced that, you know, in my lifetime, where somebody that I was working for said to me, Charlotte, the time is right. You need to go out on your own. And then I would also say, oh, but, you know, I'm afraid maybe I don't make it. And then she says, well, then do it half day, work half day for me and start your business half day. And that really is something that we may not consider at first, is to go to your employer and let them know what your passion is. And who knows, they could be opening up the door for you and supporting you. Because I think, you know, they say leaders, good leaders, or not good, but outstanding leaders will always support someone else to go out and live their dream. So that's incredible. But it hasn't been an easy road to be in business on your own, has it? I mean, you also constantly have to remind yourself of discipline and that constant self-belief. So if anybody was to go on their own today, what would be the one thing that you would say is the place they should first consider, or what should they first consider?
So the first thing, as I've already said, you need to have a bigger why. Why are you leaving, you know, the comfort of, you know, whatever that you're doing? I think, you know, it's when you understand your purpose, when you understand why you want to move into business, you know, your why will keep you going, right? Because once you are not sure about why you're doing whatever it is, when you are faced with challenges, when the bank is calling you and saying you have not paid this, when debt is crying out, it will be difficult for you to, you know, to stand the test of time. The reality is there'll be obstacles along the way, right? But I think the most important thing is start with your why. Why are you going into business? And once you know that, that will sustain you throughout the ups and downs of business. That's the first thing. The second thing is not to despise the days of small beginnings. I think sometimes because we see people who've made it out there, it makes our dreams to be, it looks impossible to start a business, right? You start an event, people don't show up, or there's only 2 people or 3 people, whatever it is. It's not about the crowd as well, but don't despise that small beginning when you start. We all have to start somewhere. All big businesses, they started somewhere. So be cognizant of that, you know, the small beginnings will be there. It's not how you start. It's really about, you know, the journey and going through it until the end. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, right? I think what has kept me in my journey in the past 7 years, it's people who have believed in me, who have supported me, my family, my friends. You know, when I'm on my down, there are people who are there who always encourages me to say, you know, stay at it, keep at it. You know, the other day, a friend sent me a picture where I was speaking at a school in January, and there were like, you know, it was an assembly full of young girls at Rent Girls the other day, and he said to me, Tshepiso, when the days are dark, I want you to look at this picture and remember these girls, and remember all these, you know, these faces of these girls. And those are things that keeps me going, you know, in business. When the going gets tough, and I'm reminded that there's a bigger picture to it. It's not about me, you know, it's about, you know, a legacy. It's about changing people's life. It's about making a difference. So whatever type of business it is, whether it's in catering, whether it's in, you know, whatever it is that you want to do in business, remember that it's about others as well, and find that bigger purpose, because that bigger purpose will actually sustain you when the going gets tough.
It's so true. I actually was watching somebody of significance this past week talking about, you know, what is entrepreneurship, and why, you know, what is it that makes a good entrepreneur and business person? And it's about serving. So you should serve first before you expect anything in return, because by serving you, it'll multiply in your favor. So you have written your chapter in the book. Yeah. What was it about the contribution to a book of this particular nature that interested you?
Sure. When I saw the topic, forgotten woman, the first thing that came to my mind was my mom. Like, I was like, what a life well lived. And I actually made a conscious decision to say, may I not forget to remember her. And that's what made me to contribute to this chapter, because I was just conscious of saying, this is an opportunity for me to stop and to honor and celebrate this phenomenal woman. And that's what made me to contribute to it. You know, I thought about it. I could write about my chapter and my qualification and all these things that have happened in my life. But the truth of the matter is, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. And I felt like I really wanted her name to echo in the books of history. I felt like I wanted to stop and say, I needed to redefine what purpose is, because we've given the word purpose to heroic things, to great things. I said earlier when I started that I'm passionate about purpose. And for the first time in my life, I stopped and introspected on what purpose was through her life. And I actually realized in retrospect that her sacrifices as a woman was purpose. She lived a life of purpose. That purpose was not qualifications, was not material things, was not, you know, all these things that we have made purpose to be. But purpose was a sense of being. Purpose was a sense of, is a sense of presence. You know, it's a sense of deep love, of sacrifice, that we have not given a premium to. And so for me, that's how those are the things that I wanted to explore as I was writing this chapter, because that's what, for me, Forgotten Woman is all about.
It's wonderful to honor your mother and to honor her in such a way, and especially at a time like this. I mean, we didn't know that this was going to be happening. We didn't know what 2020 had in store for us. But I was talking to a group of ladies this morning, and I said, you know, we must actually celebrate the fact that, I'm not saying that the pandemic is something to celebrate, but we must celebrate the fact that out of the pandemic, so much else has actually presented itself. So this book has been presented as a result of a crisis, a global crisis. And so many times we underestimate what actually can be done in a time of crisis, and that we are sometimes forced into doing things that we wouldn't necessarily want to do or think we need to do unless there's a crisis. So wonderful that you're honoring your mother, and it's an absolute honor for us to have your contribution in the book, and especially that you've taken this opportunity to honor your mother. So where to from here? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? What is your 5-year plan? Because you look like someone who has a 5-year plan.
Before I answer that question, Charlotte, I think I also want to emphasize something that you've just said, which I think the chapter for me also addresses, amplifies in a sense, that the pandemic that we're faced with, we are in lockdown at the moment and whatever. And for me, the greatest pandemic that I feel we have not addressed, and we had this conversation earlier on, it's around abuse, it's around gender-based violence. And this is the greatest pandemic. I also speak about poverty, that I think we talk about the symptoms of a lot of things, but we are not going to the roots of some of the issues that are perpetuating some of the symptoms that we see, right? And for me, it's going back to those fundamental things around the impact that poverty has in the psyche of a society, the impact that violence has, whether it's gender-based violence, whether it's domestic violence, whatever form of abuse that we are experiencing, which I think COVID has amplified. This pandemic has made us realize the bigger problem that we are faced with as a society and as humanity. And so in my chapter, I actually go deep into some of those things. So I think that, as you've said, we need to appreciate, in a sense, what this pandemic has enabled us to see as humanity, what is enabling us to confront as humanity. One of the things I also talk about in my chapter is to confront the pain of loss, is to confront the pain of grief, because with so many people dying in this time, we are not acknowledging the grief that humanity is going through. Because with many people dying through the pandemic, we are confronted with another psychological problem, which is grief and loss, that I think we are not acknowledging. So you see in the opening of my chapter, I actually share and confront grief at the point where I share the narrative of the loss of my mother. So I think it's important that, all these things, we are not just talking about them in isolation, but we give them context and understand the effects of this pandemic, that it's not just only about the loss of the economy and whatever, but it's also about that we have shaped the psychology of humanity through this pandemic, and we will see the ripple effects of it in the long run. And I hope that as people read the story and the stories in The Forgotten Women, they will be able to identify and confront what we are really confronted with through this pandemic. So I wanted to just say that before I answer the long-term question. So to answer the long-term question, I think I'm very conscious that there is a bigger fight or there's something bigger that we all need to confront. My big vision is to use the platform of social media, the platform of entertainment, to change the narrative that we are in. I say my bigger vision is to be the next Tyler Perry of South Africa. He's inspiring me, and as somebody who's gifted in the creative space, it is my dream and my vision to one, unearth talent. I'm a firm believer that if all of us could use the currency of our gifts and talent to make a living, we will be able to change a lot of narrative around poverty, around employment, and around youth development. So that is one of the key things, that how do we help people to create jobs through their God-given gifts and talent. So a bigger vision is to create that space or that studio, a creative art studio that will house creatives who will actually, you know, produce and showcase their gifts and their talent. Secondly, I want to I've written scripts. I'm a continuous writer, and I really, as I said, want to write stories, you know, that are inspirational, stories that will change the narrative. Because I was saying to you earlier on, the reason we have so much violence is because our media and our stories are perpetuating violence with the stories that are often, you know, talking about violence. You know, every story, we are selling violence in entertainment, right? And then we hope that that will change our culture. It will change, you know, our young people. Our young people then have role models that come from stories that are perpetuating violence. And those are some of the things that I believe, you know, as a writer, as a director, as a creative, I want to start writing stories that are changing narratives of that magnitude.
I hear where you're coming from in terms of what is it that we are feeding our young people, not from a nutritional perspective, but from an emotional and psychological perspective. And you quite rightly so, is that, you know, I've got young grandchildren, and I often look in astonishment at the amount of violence that is shown even on a children's program, where, you know, it's like, you know, there's always some connotation to a fight going on, you know, to aggression. And I think this very often is understated, or it's what do you call it? People don't really look into these children's channels, and be careful what your child is watching, because even if it's an animated story, there's a level of violence which is actually coming through just by the characters that are portrayed in this animated program. So, and it's like an undercurrent, you know, it's an undercurrent of violence. And this is unfortunately what very often happens, is that as parents who are working parents and things like that, you think that your children are being entertained, but you don't realize the underlying message that's actually coming through. Tshepiso, you know, I think we could spend another hour with you online, because you're such an interesting woman. You've clearly got a tremendous passion. And in your, you know, just to go back to what your core business is about, it's about coaching, and it's about helping people to break through certain barriers, and obviously to help them to understand who they are as people. What would you say is, for instance, a person that is struggling to get, you know, to get ahead in life? What would you say is the one thing, and especially coming from a coaching perspective, because you say you've got your mod, what is the one thing that people struggle with the most, just to move forward and get out of a rut of, I can't do it, or I haven't got the ability? What do you think is the one thing that holds people back?
One of the things is fear. I think, you know, fear is just one of those things that holds us back. Number one, that, you know, people feel like, you know, it inhabits it, right? And for me, it's also just helping people understand what courage is, right? Because courage is not the absence of fear, but is acting in the midst of fear. So most of us, we want the feeling of fear to go away and feel courageous and then be able to do things. But when people understand that you have to work with the fear, right? You have to work with it. It's there to propel you, not to hold you back. So if we look at everyone who's done amazing and heroic things, they always have fear. I mean, I'm a speaker and I go and I stand on many platforms. Every time before I stand, fear will be there. You know, even before this interview, I was like, oh, goosebumps. But it's a force. It's working with the wind, not against the wind. Fear is the wind that propels you to actually function. So you must work with it and not against it. Let it not inhibit you. It's allowing it to work. I mean, as an actress, that's what you work with when you're building with confidence. It's working with that emotion. So I'm going to, that's why I'm saying, whether you want to step into business or fulfill that career or that dream, that talent, whatever it is, that fear is much needed. I always say the day I don't have fear is the day I'll stop doing what I'm doing. So because it's there to serve you. So that is one of the biggest thing. The second thing is we always feel like we are not enough. You know, we always feel like something is missing. I'm not good enough, you know, and I'm of the opinion that we are all born. In my book, Born to Be Great, actually, which is one of the books that I've written, in my book, Born to Be Great, I actually talk about the gift of potential that is inside of us, that each and every human being is born with a seed called potential that is resident inside of us. And I'm of the belief that every seed comes whole. There is no seed that is half or incomplete. So inside all of us, you have come full, you are enough, you have all the gifts and the talents that you need. You have everything that you need inside of you to be successful. And once we can start believing that potential, that we are enough, then we will not have to look outside, you know, for validation or things that will make us feel like we are enough. And we will start functioning from a place of abundance and not of lack. So from a coaching perspective, and that's what I work with leaders, you know, I work with individuals to believe in the fact that they are enough, they are good enough, and they have potential inside of them, and that fear, they must work with the fear. Work with the fear. It's like the wind, right? The eagle uses the wind to soar as high as it can soar. It doesn't shy away from the wind, but it flows with the wind. Take that fear and turn that fear into courage. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but is working with the fear. So those are the two key things for me that I think in coaching I always emphasize, and also know that you have a purpose. There is a reason why you are alive today. And that purpose is in everything that you do, because purpose is not a destination, is a process. So, and purpose is now. So whatever that you are doing, whether you are cleaning a toilet, whatever it is that you're doing, that in itself is your purpose, and believe and start believing in it. So yeah, those are the three key things that I would leave from a coaching perspective.
Well, that's certainly very, very good advice. And in fact, Namila Reddy, who's online with us, says excellent advice. And then we've got, I don't know if it's Mrs. Ntungwa, but she says, yes, you are enough. So one can only but stress that people must just realize that, you know, don't try and compare yourself with someone else. You are enough. And if you want to grow and you want to develop and you want to know about the, you know, the deep seated strength, then who do they go to? They go to Tshepiso for that.
Yeah. Yes, well, Tshepiso Maledu, yes.
Wonderful. And, you know, again, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished in your very short lifespan, because you're still very young in comparison to some of us. You've certainly achieved a lot. And I think, you know, it all goes back to, you know, honoring where you come from and honoring the people that have helped you. and as you spoke about the women that have been your role models, your father, you know, you never forget where you come from, because at the end of the day, it is where we come from that has actually formed the foundation from whence we have grown into and blossomed into who you are today. So Tshepiso, thank you so much for affording me your time. Thank you so much for contributing to the book. We've already mentioned that the book is available as an ebook. It's online, it's on Amazon Kindle. We've got it on a very special offer at the moment because it's Women's Month. Please go and support us, buy your book, because by supporting us, you are supporting a woman somewhere in South Africa, because we are hoping that through the sale of this book and through the fundraising efforts for the Forgotten Women of COVID-19 project, that we are able to help some women, if not one, a few women who have found themselves in a desperate situation because of the pandemic and because of the lockdown. So from me to you all, this is Friday afternoon. It's almost it is weekend officially on a Friday afternoon. So I want to wish you all the very, very best. Have a lovely...
Before you...
Yes,
yes, Charlotte, before you close, I've put up a challenge on everyone on Facebook, and I'd like to extend this challenge. That can we create a wall of fame for all our mothers, our grandmothers, all the matriarchies that have influenced our life in a positive way. Hashtag I celebrate Alina Maledu, who is my mother. Go and hashtag I celebrate your mom, Charlotte. I know you spoke about her in a chapter, but let's create a wall of fame for these great and amazing women, because their names must echo through the books of history. And that is my challenge to everyone on Woman of Stature. Whenever you're going to listen to this, just hashtag I celebrate your mother's name, celebrate your grandmother, whoever is a matriarchy in your life who has contributed to your life. Let's write down their names and let's celebrate them. So that is my challenge to everyone as we celebrate the forgotten women, because they live on.
Thank you so much. And I take up your challenge, and I'll most certainly do that. And I'm sure many, many others are going to do the same. So thanks again, everybody, for taking the time to be part of this. We sincerely thank you, and we look forward to another opportunity where we could be celebrating and making some woman stand out because of her achievements. And Tshepiso, today was your turn. So all the best, lots of love, and bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.